Games. I've got lots of games, in case you don't know, especially computer games. This is a lot of games I just acquired, I think yesterday or the day before that. See that box down there? Big box full of games. Computer games. See that? Full of computer games. Lots of games. See this closet? You can barely see in there? It's full of computer games. Down on this shelf, more computer games. So I've kind of briefly said it before that I'd like to do a little bit more like computer game stuff on the channel. So I might be doing that. Again, hardware is always going to be the focus, hopefully. But I do want to do some more game stuff. Part of that, it's weird, part of it's psychological. I have all these games, and I have barely played any of them. And it's kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like I'm sitting there and it's like, oh, well, you know, it's just easier to sit down and play a couple games of World of Tanks or something online. But I think doing like little videos on these games may actually like encourage me to play them. Games that I'm not real big into like fighting games or platformers, but like it might encourage me to play some games that otherwise it would just sit in a box for a long time. You know, I might be like, wow, I really like this game. So it's kind of like a little bit for me to you know, just play some games that otherwise I might not have gotten around to. And I was thinking the video format, I'm not going to do like reviews. I don't think I'm really good at doing like full game reviews and stuff, but it might just be like, oh, here's 3 DOS games that deal with like modern flight combat simulators, or oh, here's 4 World War I based combat flight simulators, or here's 4 medieval strategy games, something like that. So it'll be like a couple games in like a certain genre or category, and I'll just do a quick, you know, some footage and talking about them. So that's another update. I do plan on doing more game stuff. I even have an idea. You know, I've mentioned it before. I moved here to the West Coast from Pennsylvania, and I found a good way to keep in touch with some of my friends. Me and my one friend did like a short-lived podcast. You know, he hasn't really been too interested in a while, but I'm talking to another friend, and we might be doing like a little podcast that I might add to the channel, that we're going to play like an adventure game, an old computer adventure game, and then we're both going to try to beat it. We're not going to use help, and then we're going to do like a quick little podcast, and we're just going to talk about the game. Maybe I might do that. I don't know. We're going to see how it pans out. That's another thing I kind of want to do for me too, because I really enjoyed doing that kind of thing when I did do it, because it kind of helped me keep in touch with some buddies back home. Okay, so now let's go on to kind of like the hardware filler update. Okay, so first thing I want to talk about, this monitor here. You guys may have noticed that I've changed my monitor here. It used to be like a silver gateway, kind of a newer CRT flat screen, and I really like that monitor. I'm not sure who made it. But it, you know, it was a generic gateway, but it was a good monitor. I think it was like 17 or 16 inches though. I got this for a super good deal. This is a Trinitron. This is a Multiscan G420. It's newer, flat screen, nice monitor. It's a little bit bigger. It's like 19 inches. But when you're sitting close, like 2-inch difference makes a big difference. It's actually a really cool monitor. I really like it. Some of the features is it has this, probably can't see, there's a switch. There's actually 2 VGA connections on the back. No, that's not the switch. Here's the switch. Duh, 1 and 2. So you can actually have 2 computers hooked up to it at once and switch between them, and that's really cool. So let's say like I could have one hooked up to my 46 and I can be playing that, and then one hooked up to the Mac. So I could switch between them with just like the flip of a switch. You know, if I'm playing 2 games on them, you know, at the same time, it just makes it convenient, not at the simultaneously, but you know what I mean. So it's a cool monitor. I'm just, you know, if you guys have seen it in the background, I just want to show you guys. It does have a little problem though. Now this was used for, she said they used it, they were like stock people and they used it for stock stuff, and I think there's a little bit of screen burn. It's really only noticeable if you have like a desktop up, like Windows 98, and like here and here you can see very light like lines. It's very light. It's kind of one of those things that if you kind of shake your head and unfocus it kind of goes away. It's kind of like my brain filters it out after a couple minutes, so it's really not an annoyance. If you've got a game going, you can't even notice it unless you've got like I've been playing a couple flight simulators. So if you have like a whole, like a screen that's just like a light color, like it's all baby blue up here. You can kind of see it. That's one of those things you just kind of like close your eyes and open them and it's kind of gone. You just defocus on it. So yeah, but that's then my newer monitor. I got it a couple months ago actually, and I actually built this thing just from scrap wood. But it's kind of cool. I was worried, it's kind of heavy, so I was really worried about it damaging the computer it's sitting on. Although after messing with it, I don't think it's that heavy that it would, but I kind of like this thing because now I can actually pull this thing out and work on it, or pull this out and put another computer in, and I don't have to move the monitor, which is really nice. So it's kind of a cool little stand there I built. Alright, and now the final thing I'm just going to talk about real quick is this guy. If you remember, I did my 386 to 46 DLC chip upgrade video where I had a 40 megahertz AMD 386 and we stuck in a Cyrix 40 megahertz chip, upgrade chip, a DLC upgrade chip. And you know, that was a pretty decent upgrade. It got it, you know, really did get it to 46 levels, but you know, there was all the talk that the TI chips had more cache on board. The Cyrix chips had 1 kilobyte of L1 cache, and the Texas Instrument chips supposedly had 8. Well, right off the bat, you may notice this is a 33 megahertz chip, not a 40. I just didn't want to invest in the 41 at the moment. They tend to be expensive. I'm seeing them for like 30 to 40 bucks on eBay, whereas this thing was $10. So I put together another computer right here. You'll actually see this thing in a video coming up, something really neat I have planned to show you guys, something I don't really think has been talked about on YouTube. So that will be a cool video. But the board in here, it's a little board. It's like a micro 386 board, and it had a 33 megahertz 386. So I popped in, you know, I wanted to do the benchmark. I popped in the Cyrix. I also had a Cyrix 33 megahertz DLC chip. Popped it in, benchmarked it, and I popped this in and benchmarked it, and they were exactly the same. I don't know if someone can help me out. Were the early Texas Instrument chips, did they also have 1 kilobyte of L1 cache, and it was only like later ones that maybe got the cache upgrade? Because it's just benching exactly the same as the Cyrix chip, exactly, in like everything. I did some experimenting. I mean, the motherboard in here right now, actually, the option to turn off the internal cache actually works. Oops, I ran a cache check program, and it kept telling me, I'm a little ahead of myself. First of all, the board in here is kind of weird in the fact that it doesn't have L2 cache on board. Well, it does, but you can't add anymore. It's one of these weird boards, and it has 8 KB of L2 cache, which is minuscule. It's the same as on the chip if it had 8. So anyways, I ran the cache check program, and it was only detecting 1 cache. It said this computer only has 1 cache, and it was 8 kilobits. So I don't know if it's not detecting. But the weird thing is, the performance differs. Like if I turn off the external cache, my performance goes down. If I turn down the internal cache, the performance goes down. So obviously the computer, it's still seeing and recognizing and utilizing both the L2 cache on the motherboard and the L1 cache in here. So there, even though it's not being registered, it's working, because if I shut either or off, it degrades performance. You know, so it's also really weird because this thing, I mean, the CPU that was in there was 33 megahertz, but it always detects these things as like 38 megahertz. And that's even in like non-protected mode. So just booting off a floppy without like memory managers, it's really weird. I think the motherboard's just bizarre. But anyways, yeah, that's about it. Like I said, there was no difference between this and the Cyrix part. But I'm thinking maybe these earlier ones also had the same amount of cache. Maybe they didn't upgrade to 8 kilobytes of L1 cache on these things till later. But anyways, yeah, this is my little update filler video. So thank you guys for watching, and hopefully we've got some cool stuff. I'm telling you, what's going on with this machine is going to be kind of cool. It's just looking forward to it. I got a couple cool videos coming up. I think I always say that, but for real. All right, thank you guys.